The Astros declare themselves kings of the castle. They swept a 4-game set from the Kansas City Royals, arguably one of the highest contending teams in baseball entering play this weekend, as they hold the Kansas City Royals to no more than 3 runs, I think, over the course of this 4-game series. I mean, everybody was on fire this weekend. The pitching did their job. Yordan Alvarez finally breaks out of his home run slump at home. And also, we have a good update on Kyle Tucker in the sense that he could be returning real soon. All that and so much more is coming up next. Stay tuned. How sweet it is. I love saying that for these videos. So yeah, the Astros swept a 4-game set from the Kansas City Royals, one of the best teams in baseball. And, I mean, it was a very good series all around. But let's break down the series. First things first, we're going to dive into a quick injury update on Kyle Tucker. Hopefully, this will be the last one that I'll be sharing with him for the time being. But Kyle Tucker did some outfield work prior to Thursday's game with under the watchful eyes of Joe Espada and also Dana Brown. But here's the TLDR. There's a chance that Kyle Tucker could return for the Astros' next series against the Cincinnati Reds on the road, if not the next homestand against the Diamondbacks or A's, although that could depend on if he travels with the team, which was also discussed today, so there's a chance he could stay behind. But over the weekend, he did take some live BP, and for Sunday's game, he did actually face minor league reliever Glenn Otto, who was a former Texas Ranger. I believe that he might also be with the Astros in the minor league system, but he was also rehabbing himself. But yeah, this addition has been a long time coming, and it's going to be huge to see what kind of a spark that he can provide in this lineup. And then hopefully he can try to get himself up and rolling before the season officially ends. And then hopefully, of course, also in the postseason, assuming the Astros should make it there. Although, given the fact that the Mariners lost 2 out of 3 in Anaheim this weekend, and the Astros had gained 2 games in the process, the Astros were able to inch a little bit closer to that division title that they have been. That certainly seemed like it was going to elude them this season, seeing that they were 10 games out of first place back in June or so, which was almost 2.5 months ago to this point. So, still crazy to think that, again, we've gained this much ground on the Mariners here. But diving into some other injury updates here, Ryan Pressly, who was sidelined for 2 weeks with the lower back strain, was reinstated from the IL over this weekend. Brian King, to clear a spot for him on the roster, unfortunately was sent down. Unfortunately, he did have to be the odd man out. And then with MLB rosters expanding in the month of September, so today is when I'm recording this, Cesar Salazar, who was pretty decent in his stint with the Astros, he had taken the place of Victor Caratini when he was rehabbing a quad strain back earlier this summer. And then also former top prospect Forrest Whitley was called up this month as well. He had made his major league debut, I think, last season, if not the season before that. I mean, we'll see if he happens to be any better. He had been dominating down in AAA. Now, as far as other call-ups and other rosters moves, Jake Myers had to go on paternity leave on Sunday, so Chas McCormick, who was sent down to AAA last week to hopefully get some timing going, and he appears to have done pretty well, but he was called up to take his place on the roster. So we'll see how he goes until he either gets sent back, until Myers gets back and maybe he gets sent down or somebody else does. I mean, I would imagine if he ends up going pretty good, he might stay. So we'll see what happens. Next up, Alex Bregman. He unfortunately had to miss this entire weekend series with elbow soreness, which had been plaguing him for most of August and had caused him to miss a couple of games. He did play a couple of games as designated hitter, but he didn't start at third base because it was affecting his throwing ability more so than it was hitting. But unfortunately, now the elbow soreness was affecting his hitting ability as well. But luckily, Joe Espada did say that the swelling appears to have gone down, and he could return towards the end of the series in Cincinnati, either on Thursday. Could play Wednesday, but we'll see. And then lastly, speaking of Dana Brown, I did mention him a little bit earlier with him watching Kyle Tucker. He did say that the team is likely to go to a 5-man rotation this month, with the schedule kind of lightening up a little bit. Not as far as, of course, the level of opponents that we're playing, but also, of course, with the number of off days that we may have. But he did say that the team may go to a 5-man rotation, like kind of how they were going for most of June, where off days were rather plentiful. And then if that is the case, then Ronel Blanco could be the guy that could get removed from the rotation and sent to the bullpen so that he could get a little bit of a breather, which could be a good move because at this point, I mean, he is actually really looking gassed. I mean, he has yet to go 6 innings and feels like in quite a while. He only went 5 innings in his start in the series finale against the Royals this weekend series. But diving into the series itself here, starting on this first game, Hunter Brown on his 26th birthday went 6.2 innings and only allowed 2 unearned runs after he had allowed 9 earned runs over 0.2 innings, so he had only gotten 2 outs, didn't even get out of the first inning in his previous start against the Royals in April. Hunter Brown has turned into a completely different pitcher since then. And it's kind of crazy to think. You just kind of look back on that start and realize that, like, okay, he got out of the first inning, already pitching more innings and giving up less runs than he did in that first start. But he did great in this game. Then Jason Hayward, who the Astros had gotten from the Dodgers after they had DFA'd him last week, had plated a pair to get the scoring started for the Astros. But then later on in this game, and I'm reading off my notes here, by the way, but later on in this game, if not before that, Alex Bregman had actually gotten ejected over arguing the strike zone, and he had just kind of walked between the catcher and the umpire and just said maybe something like, "That's terrible," or something like that. I couldn't really lip read him, but he didn't really even get up in his face, and yet the umpire still tossed him, which is just total bullshit. One of the softest umpires in the league. He didn't even issue any warnings, or, I mean, maybe the umpire did hear a little bit from the Astros dugout for like a little bit beforehand, in which case I can kind of understand that. But at the same time, dude, cut him loose, like give the kid a break, especially considering the fact that Shea Whitcomb was our one guy who was playing in at third base because, well, unfortunately later on when Brian Abreu had come in relief of Hunter Brown, he had allowed the first batter he had faced to reach base after a bobbled ground ball hit to Shea Whitcomb, which probably would have otherwise ended the inning. He had come into the game after Bregman had gotten ejected. He bobbled it, and he could not get the throw to first base to finish off the inning. And it also did not help that Jeremy Pena was unable to field a routine grounder on a ball that went under his glove, which I think that came with 1 out in this inning. This, I think, was his 10th error or something like that, or 6th, I think, in his last 11 games or so entering this series. I mean, Pena, as of the completion of this series, is 2nd in the AL in errors committed and 4th overall, which is just terrible for a Gold Glover, in my opinion. I mean, granted, he only has 1 Gold Glove at his position, but, I mean, for a Gold Glover like this, you really should only be averaging, like, maybe, I don't know, 2 errors a month or something like that, as unrealistic as that may seem for a guy like him. But honestly, dude, Pena committing these errors, and even the infield defense committing these errors has led to so many unearned runs. And in fact, all 3 runs scored in this game by the Kansas City Royals were all unearned runs, thanks to sloppy defense by the Astros infielders. And then Kyle Isbell for the Royals had come up to bat at some point in this inning with Brian Abreu on the mound here. He had actually missed a grand slam by inches. It was hooking down the right field line, but it was foul. But instead, he ended up giving up the next worst thing, a bases clearing bloop hit that landed all the way to the wall. And I mean, it wasn't even hard hit. It was just a bloop single that just turned into 3 unearned runs for the Royals, and that would put the Astros down 3-2. But going into the bottom of the 8th, the Astros would then start a rally, and I'm going to break this down play by play for you guys. So this started with Altuve drawing a leadoff walk before Jordan hitting a deep fly ball that appeared that looked like it was going to be a home run, and it would have been nice because this would have been his first home run since late June. But unfortunately, the high launch angle of 38 degrees resulted in it being a flyout. So that would be the first out of the inning. Caratini, who certainly has come through off the bench a lot this season, would come on to pinch hit for Shea Whitcomb, and he would deliver a key base hit to put 2 men on. And then Yonier Diaz would hit a ground ball back to the pitcher Lucas Erceg, who was actually attempting to catch the ball with his bare hand. Almost did so, actually, might I add, which would have been a horrible break for the Astros had he done that. And then as the ball landed in front of him, he accidentally kicked it towards third base, which resulted in making a tough play. And it was a tough play because he threw the ball wide to first base, and that would allow Altuve to score to tie the game up at 3 runs apiece. And then Diaz, who was actually hustling up the first base line, would accidentally run into the Royals' first baseman's hand as he was trying to catch Erceg's wide throw. And unfortunately, the Royals would actually lose both their first baseman and their pitcher on the same play, which was kind of a weird thing to see. You don't really see them that much every day. But Altuve would score from second after all that mess to tie the game up at 3. And then continuing on here, Pena would then ground into a force out to unfortunately not get the go-ahead run home. And then Zach DeZenzo, who came on to pinch hit for Singleton in the 7th inning earlier. So the Astros actually had to empty their bench to pull this one out. And I forgot to mention that. But yeah, there was no one on the Astros bench at this point. So if it weren't for this AB here, we would have likely been in Manfred innings. And I mean, who knows what would have happened? I mean, given the fact that, again, we don't have many pinch hitters available to us, or we had none at this point, I should say, we probably could have very well lost if we had gone to Manfred innings. But Zach DeZenzo, who had come on to pinch hit earlier in this game, had put together one of the best ABs of his rookie season, at least to this point, with a bases-loaded walk to force in the go-ahead run for the Astros. And then Dubon would follow with a 2-run double to put the Astros up 6-3, which would be the final score in this game, as Josh Hader would convert his 29th consecutive save. Though, unfortunately for Josh Hader, that streak would actually come to an end, as Paul DeJong would hit a home run off of him in the 9th inning to tie the game up at 2, and at the game 2 of this series, a game in which the Astros pitching had carried a no-hitter into the 8th inning, which started with Framber Valdez pitching 7 no-hit innings. And this is the 5th time that they have carried a no-hitter as late as the 7th inning this season, which ties 2 other teams for the most no-hit bids of 7 or more innings pitched in a single season since 1961. Given the fact that Framber Valdez had been a couple of outs shy of a no-hitter in his last start, before this in Arlington, or I think he made one start before that, but he was an out shy of a no-hitter in Arlington. Astros pitching staff was actually 4 outs shy of another no-hit bid in this game. But Ben Gamel would go yard in this game to get the scoring started, and then a Pena sac fly in the 8th inning would make it 2-0 Astros. And that insurance one would loom huge because, like I said earlier, Josh Hader's streak of 29 consecutive saves was snapped by a 2-run home run off of Paul DeJong, which would tie the game. And before that, Pena would actually commit his 6th error in his last 11 games or something like that to allow Paul DeJong to come up as the tying run. But luckily for us, Jose Altuve would bail Josh Hader out in the bottom of the 9th with a game-winning double that hit off of the out-of-town scoreboard after Myers had actually gotten on base with a base hit with 1 out in the 9th inning. Jose Altuve continuing to cement his career as a member of the Astros. So far that contract that we had signed him is turning out to be so worth it. So in my last video, I had said that the Astros would hope that they would take at least 2 games in this series, and while they did take the first 2 games of this series, still in line for a sweep, but they still had a lot more work to do. Starting here in Game 3, Cole Reagans, he had looked practically untouchable through the first 5 innings with 10 strikeouts. He had struck out 8 consecutive Astros batters, which I think was 1 shy of tying a Royals franchise record. Jose Altuve was the only guy to put the ball in play against him. He had actually done so in his 2 ABs, but the Astros had tagged him for 5 runs to knock him out in the 6th inning before he could even record an out in the 6th inning. And then you say Kikuchi, I say victory. Kikuchi had struck out 12 batters over 7 innings of work, and then Ryan Pressly would get the save to finish off the month of August for the Astros with a solid record, to say the least. They would finish this month with the 2nd lowest opponent batting average of all time in the AL over the course of a single month, and then also their pitching staff ERA, I think like 253 or something like that, was the best in the majors this month alone. Going into Game 4 here, the Astros would be in line for the sweep, and they would get so rather handily, with Yordan going yard at home for the first time since June 22nd. His ninth home run of the season at this point, and one of 2 home runs he'd hit in this game, the first of which had come in the 4th inning to get the scoring started. John Singleton would then add on to that with a 2-run jack to make it 3-0 Astros. Ronel Blanco, like I said earlier, had actually pitched 5 innings in this game, which, was okay. He certainly is looking gassed, but, to his credit, they were scoreless innings. The Royals did, of course, get a couple of base runners on him, but for the most part, it wasn't too much of an issue. And then in the 6th inning, Yuli Gurriel, the former Astro, who the Royals had gotten off of waivers from the Braves, would get the Royals on the board in the 6th inning, but the Astros would answer back in the bottom half of the 6th inning with Yordan's 2nd home run of the game, giving him 30 on the season, which would make it the 4th season in a row in which he has hit 30-plus home runs, 2nd longest streak in Astros franchise history behind Jeff Bagwell. And then the Astros would go on to win the game 7-2, but with them scoring 3 additional runs in the bottom half of the 8th inning, and then Caleb Wart would get the final 3 outs in this game. Most of the Astros' high-leverage relievers would get the day off, except for Hector Neris. Ryan Abreu really did have a couple of days off in this series, which is good because he does lead the AL in appearances, and he does look a little bit tired, if you ask me. So I'm kind of glad that we got Hector Neris to potentially eat up some innings for him out of the bullpen if we need him to. So overall, dude, this was a very, very good series. The Astros are definitely looking like one of the toughest teams to beat. Hopefully it should be that way come October. So again, should the Astros make it there. But you don't want to count this Kansas City Royals team out because Bobby Witt Jr. is definitely having a historic season, definitely playing on an MVP caliber level. Obviously not going to win MVP this year, but again, if you let him beat you, then that's how the Kansas City Royals are going to win this, are going to be trying to beat you. Not to mention their pitching certainly did look good. Granted, the Astros certainly made them look pretty bad. I certainly thought that pitching was going to be deciding this series, and sure enough, it really did, considering that Astros pitchers had gone at least 5 innings each in the 4 games of this series. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Next up for the Astros, they are going to be hitting the skies for 3 games scheduled over 4 days in Cincinnati. A rare off day followed by the series opener on Monday on a Tuesday. So, I mean, that's kind of weird. Let me know down in the comments, guys. Why do, is it common for teams to have off days during a series instead of before or after a series? Let me know on how that is, because I have no idea how that works. But anyway, guys, like I said, that's going to do it for this video. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new here and you want to see more of these videos. And if you do want to see any more of my stuff, click these 2 videos here above my shoulders. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I'll see you guys in the next video.